Welcome back to part 2 of my STX Duel 2 review. I've gotten the opportunity to work with the prototype of the Duel 2 throughout the entire summer getting ready for Worlds. It was great to get my hands on with the final edition. It's sleek, it's a really good looking head, so I was privileged to get a chance to review it and work with it this past week. Anybody who works with me at my FOAs also knows that my guys that I see on a weekly basis in Westchester, the Savage Squad, I gave a few of them up to my guys so they were able to use it at our draw days as well. So I was able to see firsthand some of the things that it was able to do. I also got a few clips that I'm going to show you after this from guys that just wanted to give their own 2 cents, a good and a bad thing about the head that they thought from the week. Take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. Those guys had a limited chance to work with it, but they did take at least 100 reps with it. I was able to take a lot of reps with this. I've been training with it all week, so I'm going to give you my performance review of the STX Duel 2 now. Okay, we talked about the improved scoop. It is noticeable that this scoop, they call it a speed scoop. It's got a narrow profile, but don't let that fool you. It's very, very strong. This is a huge improvement, and this jumps out at you right away when you're playing with this head. The ability to scoop ground balls is much improved. I know that the OG Duel had an issue. We'd go to scoop, and it would usually bend to the side. This picks the ball up real easy. One-handed, two-handed, off turf or grass, doesn't matter. It's a huge improvement, so I applaud STX on that front for sure. The sidewalls are no longer squares. These are circles and ovals, and there's plenty of stringing options here. I get a lot of questions about how to string a head, and to be honest, you shouldn't be going by what any face-off guy says. You should learn how to string your own head and be able to do it based on how you throw and catch. Don't string a face-off head based on face-offs. Don't let anyone tell you there's a particular way to string a face-off head to give you an advantage. There's only you should be focusing on is how to throw, catch, and shoot as accurately as possible. Now, one thing that you can look at to modify, because of the pinching involved with a head, you might want to keep your sidewall strings on the outside, but that's completely preference. It's up to you. Now, speaking of the pinch, the constant pro of this head is that this kink develops real early in this head and it enables you to kind of cut down into the ball. The throat is much stronger. This thicker back part of the sidewall is noticeable on 50-50s. When you lock up, this thing doesn't cave like it used to. You can bury yourself in on the screw drill and really lock it in. It wraps right around the ball like the OG. Okay, you're coming in, boom, that thing goes right into the cup, which is great. Now, here's the only negative that I have about this head so far, and it's an easily fixable one, so don't get upset about this. This really keyholes. It turns into the shape of a peanut very quick. The middle of this head kind of caves in. Now, when it caves in a little bit, and this is what we talked about, when you get a Duel 2 or a Duel, most of us would just give it a little wrench like this. Some guys would do an elaborate little show of it and do this whole thing, which, whatever gets that kink is what gets that kink, which is great, but it's good to a point. Once it starts to cave in too much, then the ball ends up getting stuck right in the middle, which is tough. Now, this is what I'm gonna recommend. Anybody who buys this head, don't use a softball. I'm gonna beg you not to use a softball to jam in here, because what's gonna happen is the thinner parts of the plastic are gonna start to get really expanded, and then they're gonna pinch again, real expanded, then pinch. This head, just like the original, is not a one that I'm gonna find that's gonna crack a lot. This thing's gonna last. The only way that this thing's gonna go away or become unusable is if it gets shot right here at these flex points. And these flex points will become really, really noodly if you keep jamming a softball in it and then facing off, so that to the point where then it starts to fold in half on itself. What I would recommend is buy a hockey puck, which is like 99 cents, and use that to space this head out, because then it'll widen it, but it won't be that egregious, so you won't be making the plastic really shot. You'll just be spacing it out so it stays legal on you. Okay, the limiting factor for all of us as face-off guys is after these long tie-ups, we go to pop the ball out, and then mid-face-off, this thing's crushed, and we end up not being able to throw or catch, or it might be illegal after the face-off. So we have to make sure we keep it spaced out somehow. And this is an average problem we all have as face-off guys. But If you use a hockey puck, it's going to keep the lifespan of this head is going to be a lot longer than if you jammed a softball in it, okay? So going back to the performance on this, on 50-50s, it's strong, man. It's much stronger than the dual. You notice it right away. You cut right into the ball. You're able to get around it, okay? Bury that left hand and get over top of it, which is great. On the plunger, the left hand comes up, boom, okay? And you notice right away that ball slips right into the throat, okay? You can power clamp very well. I saw guys peeling each other off the ball during our power clamping sessions. The whole top of the head will peel back, but unlike the original dual, this whole part from here down stays strong. The original dual, basically like the bottom 20% of the head was useful. I would say 1/3 of this head, which is an enormous difference. It's gonna give you a lot more face-off wins on lockups, which is great. It does start to peel away a little bit more like a CEO. If you're more of a fan of the CEO, you might want to give this head a try because it does have the capability to kind of fold in on itself and bend that way. So that's going to help as well. And then, like we said, the one thing that's noticeable about the shorter throat, okay, the dual changed the board. It really revolutionized equipment as far as face-off heads go. It was the first standard face-off head to sell. It had a shorter throat. What's interesting about this one is it sloped on an angle. And we all noticed that even though it was shorter, it was cut on an angle this way. So you still have to kind of really pay attention to where your fingers are when you go down and line up, because it may look to you that you're not touching the plastic from this view, but from this view, you might be touching the plastic. So you're gonna have to make sure you get used to holding it a certain way so that it doesn't screw you up in a game, okay? For whatever reason, it almost feels like the throat's longer, but when you look at it spec-wise, it's technically not. I like how the front of this is kind of matte, just from a looks perspective. It's a very sleek, good-looking head, especially the black one. But what I can tell you is that this does not feel like the old OG that would kind of melt in the summer. I feel like this head is going to stay strong in the heat. It's not going to get all noodly. So the plastic that they use is a little bit more rigid. It's not like the plastic you saw at the String King head, which kind of bounced right back. This is the kind of head where you can kind of manipulate it a little bit to get it to the right pinch that you want, and it'll stay, which is both a plus and a negative. As long as you have a hockey puck to keep it spaced out, you should be fine. I would recommend using thinner mesh with this head. So then if it does become kinked during a face-off, the ball still comes out clean, and you don't have to worry about it getting caught. But the scoop is strong. The shape is the same. If you're a dual user, overnight you'll be able to use this head and you'll feel like you never changed, but you will notice much more strength on the 50-50s. The ball gets grabbed real quickly, so if you do a proper technique and you get to your feet to rip the ball out, that thing's gonna come out clean every time. So this head's gonna sell extremely well. I think STX did a great job. They definitely took a big step forward with this head compared to the OG. And one thing that is important to notice that I also like is even though this has the insertable throat, had no issue putting it on any shaft. It was tight, they measured it right, they put this in, the mold was perfect. Every shaft that I've tried this on, I've tried it on an STX, a Maverick, and an East Coast Dive shaft, and all of them went on like butter. So I would recommend that you use this with any shaft you want. And like I said, they come in black and white. They're available now, so you can go to Universal Lacrosse or any of those websites and pick it up. And I want to thank STX for sending us over a bunch of these, and I think you guys should all give it a try, especially you original dual users. You're going to enjoy this head, okay? So stay tuned for the next Beast Lab, and enjoy your weekend, guys.
The thing I like about it is that it's stiffer at the bottom, flexes more at the top, but one thing I don't like about it is that middle pinches in, and with the bottom so wide, it's hard to do backdoor exits with that ball slipping out.
One thing I like about the Duel 2 is the speed scoop. It's so much better than the original Duel. But one thing I don't like is how the throat is actually a little bit longer than the first Duel, and it's angled differently, so it doesn't allow your hands to get as close to the plastic.
Alright, one thing that I love about the Duel 2 is the stiff scoop. So much better than the original one, but the negative about this head is that it pinches really easily, even more so than the original one.
I love the speed scoop, but I don't like how the top of the
like Sidewall is very flexible at the top, and then it's very stiff at the bottom. I don't like that.